I'm here at EVO Day 2 2017 with Liquid Chillin, who has taken a 65th place exit at EVO. Chillin, I know it might be hard to talk about, but how are you feeling right now?
Definitely not great. It wasn't obviously my best performance, and really felt like I just couldn't get my gameplay going in general. So it happens. It's a learning experience as always, and I'm going to try to figure out what I did wrong that led to that and try to prevent that from happening in the future.
We've talked before about how your career has gone trajectory-wise, and we talked actually a long time ago, about a year ago, before Pound, and you said you were aiming to make some big mentality changes, aiming to really change things up, and you actually had quite a good run at EVO last year, beating Wizrobe, doing quite well. Um, and then recently, you've been doing pretty well. You ranked 50th in the ranks that just came out. What do you think that sort of uneven trajectory is owed to, though?
Um, it basically boils down to mostly what I talked about with you last year, which is the mentality, the mindset issues. And I've made some adjustments and made some improvements in that field, but it's really difficult to sort of make that consistent as well. You can sort of have a good feeling about certain tournaments and lead that into momentum and doing well in the tournament, but this tournament I kind of came into it with a bad mindset and a bad mentality of just because I felt like I wasn't playing well in the practice leading up to the tournament, and because of that I was kind of predisposed to not doing too well. So I think my next big hurdle as far as mindset goes is figuring out how to get over that and sort of basically lie to yourself if you're not playing well and just force yourself to play well anyway, basically, because obviously when it's tournament time it's time to perform and you have to do it regardless. So being able to find out how to get that consistency even when I'm personally not feeling it is, I think, the next big hurdle for me for sure.
Do you think that last year, when you had a string of good performances, your mind was just in a better place? Is that really what you can owe that success to?
I think so. I think there's a lot of pressure these days as far as being a top player. Your ranking and how you do at every tournament kind of affects your career as a smasher, obviously. So the pressure definitely didn't feel as strong last year, I think, for the most part. And if I did feel under pressure, I was able to adjust to it better. And so I think I'm going to have to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit as far as mindset goes. As far as gameplay and practicing and all that stuff, I think I've actually been doing better this year, but it's just the mentality issues that are kind of surfacing in tournament has been causing me to have a pretty inconsistent year. It hasn't been the worst year. Like, it's still better than my 2015, for example, but it's still not great. So I'm definitely looking to step it up for the rest of the events this summer and the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, speaking of inconsistency, you did actually have a really, really good placing just last weekend at Genesis Red, where you got 5th place, actually upsetting your teammate, upsetting your teammate Shu, um, and doing quite well. But some of that people have said is owed to bracket matchups and that you faced ices and stuff. You were double eliminated by Fox this tournament, losing to SFAT and East Coast Jeff, the latter who was a pretty big upset. Do you think that the Fox matchup is sort of a problem point for you?
Yeah, it actually never used to be. It actually used to be one of my best matchups as far as in tournament play. I would rarely lose to Foxes ranked below me, but a lot of the MDVA Foxes that I played constantly sort of have not. I haven't had the chance to practice with them much this year at all. Red, Milkman, Siren, for example, those are the main examples of I would just grind Fox dittos with them for hours, and I got really good at the Fox matchup mainly through that, especially in recent years. And so the fact that I've barely played any of them this year, I think is starting to show itself in the sense that I don't really feel comfortable in Fox dittos anymore. That used to be pretty much the most comfortable I felt in any matchup was against another Fox, and now at this point I'm kind of back to wondering what I'm supposed to be doing and stuff. So I think it's just a lack of practice against that specific matchup. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't think about is once you have a matchup down, you kind of got to keep practicing it. You can't just stick on like ride that knowledge forever. You still have to actively practice it to be able to apply all that knowledge as well. And so I think that's what's lacking for me in the Fox Ditto right now. So I'm definitely going to have to practice a lot more against Red, Siren, Milkman, and just Fox in general, I think.
You're saying mentality might be your biggest problem, and then to have a disappointing result like this at EVO, that can take a big toll on your mentality. We've talked before about how you've actually, despite mentality being your biggest problem, you feel it's been your biggest problem since all the way back when you started playing, back in the day. How do you take an experience like this, which you've had your fair share of in less up years, less good years? How do you take an experience like this and turn it into change for the better?
It's definitely tough, but I think that it's mainly just figuring out what caused it to go wrong and then avoiding that in the future. As I said earlier, it's pretty much there is some set of circumstances, some reason that, led to me playing pretty bad this tournament, and it's sort of trying to hone in on exactly what that is, which I didn't hardly ever do back in the day, especially, and then even in recent years, I only recently started to sort of really try to focus on what went wrong for me specifically versus just kind of brushing it off as a bad tournament, which is, it's a decent way to handle it because at least that way you're kind of getting over it and you're trying to move on. But if you can actually look at your bad tournament performance and sort of pinpoint why it went bad and then get around that for the future, then that makes a big difference. So that's what I'm looking to do with this event for sure.
You know, it has to be said that despite despite all of the hardship you've gone through, you really have stuck around and you've grown a pretty devoted fan base in recent years, in recent memory, that is always there for you. How much would you say you focus on streaming and appealing to the fans? How do you balance that with still going, still trying? Because from talking to you, you still want to be the best. Like, it's really clear. How do you balance those two things, though, when one might, seemingly interfere with the other?
Yeah. It's definitely tough. It's pretty difficult to do, and it's something that I've struggled with in the past couple of years. I think that in 2015, for example, when I had pretty much my worst year so far in Melee, it was because I was kind of focusing too much on appealing to, my fans and making my stream enjoyable to watch. Because honestly, when it comes to grinding Melee tech, it's not always the most interesting to watch for the viewer. So, other things, playing other games, I started speedrunning Sunshine, stuff like that. And I think that helped grow my stream a lot, but it might have hindered my Melee play at the same time. So there's a definite balancing act to it, and it's something really difficult. But I think finding ways to try to make the stream engaging even when you are practicing seriously can help a lot. And so I've been looking to do that, and also just balance the gameplay in general of me playing Melee versus me playing another game or just messing around in Melee. And I think it basically boiled down to, at least for me this year, if I put in enough time per day on Melee, then it doesn't really matter what I do with the rest of my time as far as if I'm running Speedshine or whatever it is. I still get the practice I need as far as tech skill goes, at least. And I think recently I've really stepped up my tech skill in that regard, but now what's lacking for me, I think, is the consistent high-level practice of against other people. So probably going to get into more net play, probably going to start trying to have more fests like I used to with Milkman Siren, Red, Asin, etc. Because I think that's what's lacking for me lately. Is it kind of feels like I'm kind of lost in the neutral sometimes. Like, I'm just not used to fighting other high-level opponents at this point. So got to get back into that. And like I said, it's rough to try to balance it with, an active stream where I have a lot of different stuff going on. But if I continue to do basically what I've done and focus on at least that certain amount of Melee per day, then I think I'll be able to still improve in Melee while also having a healthy stream.
One thing actually that I've heard other players say, I talked to Ally about this and I talked to Mango about this. They said that playing other games can actually help them out in terms of how they think about Melee, not putting too much stock into it, not getting exhausted. Do you feel that way, or is it a little bit different for you?
I definitely feel that to some extent. I think it's a great way to unwind, and if you kind of spend all your time seriously focusing on Melee and trying to get better, it can have like a burnout effect. You can kind of start to just care too much about the game, put too much stock into it, as you said. I think that unwinding with other games that you play mainly for fun definitely helps a lot in sort of keeping you fresh with Melee, keeping you on your toes and not really worrying too much about what's happening as far as your Melee results go. And I mean, that's part of it too. As I mentioned before, the pressure of performing as a top player these days has gotten more and more significant over the years, and because of that, having that other game to sort of go back to, you know what I mean? it really does help in terms of taking a little bit of the edge off in tournament. And so I feel that to some extent, and I think to some extent it might have helped last year. Last year when I had a pretty good year, I was also speedrunning Sunshine like a lot, you know what I mean? But I think that there's sort of a minimum practice level that you kind of have to hit with Melee, and I feel like I haven't really been hitting that too much this year. And so for players like Mango and Ally who grind their games constantly, I think that having that other game helps a lot. And even in my case, I think it helps, but I'm just sort of not getting to where I need to be in Melee first.
Yeah, that makes sense. Last time we talked, you actually mentioned too, you said, I remember very well, you said you still wanted to be the best, you still had that drive, but you were looking at other things in the future too, being a commentator, which you've gotten a lot of praise for, obviously your stream. Where's your mind at right now, coming off of a somewhat disappointing season? What's the future look like? What are all the branching paths in the road?
Right. Well, number one, I'm still definitely gonna try my best in Melee to get as good as I can. Obviously, with my performances this year, it's looking a little bit bleak as far as skyrocketing in the rankings or something like that. But I still think I have the potential, and so I'm gonna still look to that. But I'm also looking to branch out a bit more in esports, because esports is basically what I love. It's basically my life, you know what I mean? And so to have, I think, some kind of career going in esports would help a lot. And I would love to continue playing Melee on the side, like at tournaments, and I think that would actually possibly help me out, just not having the pressure of having to perform as a top player, because I have another job to fall back on, basically. And so I'm looking into those options. I'm gonna try to start writing more, because I wrote History of a Smasher and it got really good responses, but I haven't done too much Smash related writing, and I think that could help a lot. And obviously, as you mentioned, commentary, I've been trying to do more and more of that, and I usually get really good feedback. So definitely going to look to do more of that, and basically just keep my options open. I think esports is still very, very young as far as its potential for growth, and I think that in the next few years it'll continue to sort of explode and get bigger as it has been in the past few already. And so I'm not too worried about it as far as my career as a player falling off. I think regardless the fact that after taking a break when Brawl came out and then playing for a few years and still getting back to top 50 level, you know what I mean? I think that shows that I still have a lot of potential left in me and stuff. And so obviously disappointing tournament today, but I'm not going to let that deter me too much as far as my goals of getting better at Melee. Still going to keep that up. And like I said, regardless of what else I end up doing, in all likelihood, I'll keep playing tournaments and keep trying to get better, because at the end of the day, that's definitely the goal. And so definitely looking into, potentially branching out into other stuff as well. But for now, I'm still focused on Melee too.
I'm glad to hear that, and I'm sure a lot of people are too. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, Chillin. Always really good to talk to you, get your thoughts on how you're doing. Any last words, any shout-outs or anything you want to say before we end?
Yeah, sure. Shout-outs to Team Liquid, of course, and all my sponsors for helping the team and helping us get to these events and have the chance to perform and everything. Sorry to my fans. Definitely not the best performance for me, but I promise I will bounce back from this. I definitely think I have a ton more potential that I haven't showed yet, and I'm going to make all the adjustments I need to actually bring it out in tournament. So thanks to everyone who still supports me regardless. You guys are awesome, and hopefully you'll be there when I'm pulling top 8 at these majors, because I promise it's coming.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Chillin. With HTC Esports, I'm Epengu. This is Liquid Chillin. Thanks so much, and if for more content this weekend from EVO 2017, be sure to follow this YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.